Can't connect it.
Oh, welcome to Outside Shots here live in Studio K. As always, we have Shane on the screen randomly. I don't know why, but here we are. We are in Studio K. This is Eddie Johnson. I'm Saul Bookman. We appreciate you all join. Thanks for sharing that, Eddie. Thank you for joining us this morning on yet another episode of Outside Shots. It feels like this is our 100 and something show.
Is it?
Feels like it.
What number is it?
It's got to be. We're definitely over 100 for sure.
Really?
Oh yeah, we've been doing this for like 3 years.
My bank account doesn't look like it's been over 100. Well, go ahead.
My goodness. Okay. All right. Well,
you the boss.
You literally told me that sometimes.
You just told me you work for ALLCITY.
Sometimes you literally.
Did he just say?
EJ is literally said, "This is listen. Don't let this man fool you, acting like he's hurting paycheck to paycheck. This man has literally told me, like, oh, I got paid. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay,
that's because you don't look at the small deposits.
Oh my god. What, they look like ATM rebates to you? Is that what that is?
That's what I thought it was.
Oh my goodness. we already started the day off high. I mean, EJ comes in every morning. I wish you all could be here in the studio. Maybe we'll just secretly invite some people just to see what Eddie does when he comes into these offices.
We should just start the stream like 5 minutes early.
We should. And then watch him come in. Just hair on fire.
Yeah, that's not a good idea.
No,
we might get kicked off TV.
You just some off the wall stuff. You just
really based on some of the stuff these guys say on podcasts now.
PG.
Are you kidding me? If we get kicked out for something that we do, which is not even R-rated, some of the stuff these guys say on podcasts.
It's true. It's true. It's true. Speaking of which, we finally got Mat Ishbia to talk to the media last week, and I wanted to go back and get your thoughts. But first, I think there's an important thing that we do need to address, and that's obviously the BS that went on with Stephen A. and Mat Ishbia. And if those of you are here and don't know what we're talking about, and we do appreciate you all in the chat. Hello, Amelia, Cassie, Pablo Valenzuela, BS Murray. Well, let's get you caught up. This is what Stephen A. had to say about Mat Ishbia to start the offseason.
Mat Ishbia needs to understand that right now, you are on the verge of being recognized as the worst owner in the history of basketball. That's saying a lot. That's saying a lot. Donald Sterling once owned an NBA franchise. James Dolan, until he recently hired Leon Rose, was on that trajectory. That's the trajectory, if you're Mat Ishbia, that you are on right now, being recognized as arguably the worst owner in the history of basketball. Why? Your team goes to the finals. Since that time, you come along, got rid of Chris Paul, got rid of DeAndre Ayton, got rid of Cam Johnson, got rid of these guys, ultimately Mikal Bridges, he's gone too. Got rid of Coach Monty Williams. Not only did you get rid of Coach Monty Williams, you hired Frank Vogel, got rid of him after 1 year. You got rid of Mike Budenholzer 1 year after signing him to a 5-year deal in excess of $50 million. You spent $214 million in salary this last season, about $152 million in luxury tax dollars, which was both tops for the NBA. Yes, you got Kevin Durant. Yes, you got Bradley Beal with $111 million left on his deal. But in the process, you've given up the farm, like damn near 8 first-round picks for crying out. I don't even know what number it is, okay? You've just depleted your assets along the way. No one is more culpable for this particular question than the ownership. 98% of their problems falls on ownerships and the decisions that they have made.
All right, so there's a lot to get into right there off the bat, but I'm just going to go ahead and debunk several things that he said right off the bat. And I'm sure this has already been debunked a million times, but we're going to go ahead and rehash it anyway because we didn't have a chance to talk about it last week. First, you could throw in Mikal Bridges in terms of that trade scenario, whatever. The biggest thing here is that you went from the finals to the Ishbia era as if there was no transition in between. Reminder, this is the same team that got housed by the Mavericks in Game 7 before Ishbia got there. And then on top of that, listen, the season wasn't going great the year Ishbia took over. It wasn't going great. They were struggling. They're kind of about a 500 team. And Ishbia made a move to get Kevin Durant. At the time, a lot of people were excited. There's some people that weren't because they lost Mikal and Cam and 4 first-round picks. But overall, I think the tenor of the city was they were excited that Kevin Durant was here. To lump him in, even if it was a mistake, which we'll get to in a second, with Donald Sterling, of all people, like one of the most disgraced owners in the history of basketball, both on and off the court. Like, it's not even remotely close. It's just so disingenuous. And I really don't want to spend too much time on Stephen A. Smith today, but here we are.
Yeah. Some people you deal with, they are like right in the second of criticism. Like, we're going to deal with that all until the game 2 of the NBA playoffs, where you got fans out there mad at their team that they lost. They're going to be critical of certain guys that they didn't play well. The Kyle Kuzma's in Milwaukee, 0 for 5, right? The Jalen Green and Van Fleet last night for Houston, who shot 7 for 34. And people going to say, oh, it's over. It's a 7-game series.
Yeah.
Like, there's some people out there that just jump on stuff in the moment. That's Stephen A. in this. He jumped on it in the moment because he was one of those dudes when the Suns got Kevin Durant was saying, oh, man, they're going to be nice. Mm-hmm. He was one of those dudes when we got Bradley Beal, and you know what everybody was saying? And not just him. How could they do that? They're over the cap. How could they find a way to get another player? That's not fair. I mean, the quotes that were out there on this team, when that happened, was like, that's not fair. How could they do that? Going into this season, Stephen A. was one of them. The Suns have a chance to win a championship. I mean, that's what people were saying. The Suns were ranked up there top 3, top 5 in a chance to win a championship this past season. Nobody was saying, oh, they're not going to be good. No one was going to say they're going to be in the play-in. No, they were saying have a chance to win 50-something plus games and contend for an NBA championship. Yeah. That's what they said before the season. And now things go wrong. Of course they do. You can feel good going to sleep at night, wake up and sick as a dog in the morning. You're right. But you don't just say, okay, now go all the way to square one and start ripping the owner. Or start ripping, well, you should have had this coach instead of that coach. You shouldn't have fired this coach. You should have kept this coach. Now you go backwards when it doesn't work out the way you expect it to work. The people don't understand, and Stephen A. should know, it's difficult. It is difficult. He once climbed that show that he has when people weren't watching it initially, when he was trying to make his way and people were critical of his loud mouth and how loud he was, and people kept pushing on him and the negativity, and all of a sudden, it kind of turned positive for him. Okay? But initially, nobody go back and try to overly kill you. Like, to be able to say that about Mat Ishbia right now, a guy that's an owner. So an owner is not just basketball. It's the entire bubble of everything. So what he has done for the fans in regards to the TV, free TV, lower the prices inside the arena, that's part of ownership. It's like Donald Sterling, past the personal stuff that he did and said, He was a stingy owner. He had multiple first-round picks, first players taken in the draft, couldn't keep them, didn't want them because he didn't want to pay them. He didn't want to pay them. He was one of the cheapest owners in the history of the game, but he made a lot of money in not paying people. He was in it just for the money. He wasn't in it for anything else. The Clippers were also ran. They were a team that everybody loved to go play. To use him as a comparison and to try to compare him to any owner right now at the beginning of his ownership. What's the great things he's done, as I said, off the court with those things, but also being aggressive, not being stingy. All of those things. In the history of in sports, if you had a stingy owner, you probably got a losing team.
Yeah.
So basically eliminate all the positives, Stephen A. And you're going to go right to the vulnerability of the fact that this team totally underachieved this year, okay? And you're going to put it on Mat Ishbia. Mat Ishbia didn't shoot a damn jumper. Mat Ishbia wasn't setting up the offense. Mat Ishbia wasn't over there in the warm-up coaching. He wasn't. What he did was try to put together what he thought could be a tremendous team. And it didn't work. Okay, that makes him a bad owner. See, he's straight for the one thing with Stephen A. And look, and he comes on my radio show, so I consider him a friend. But like he gets on people, I'm going to get on his ass right now. You were wrong. You were wrong, man. And then he doubled down. You know, he apologized.
We're going to get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But, you know, just admit sometimes when you're 100% wrong. The people that drive me crazy in this life are the ones that love to play tennis. You argue about one thing, and then they want to jump around because they don't like the fact that you beat them here. And I can't stand that. I don't play tennis when I argue. I try to stay right on point. And he's a guy that doesn't stay on point. He just did it with LeBron a few months ago. Like, just stay on point, man.
Yeah.
The man told you to stop putting him out there in public and challenging his level as a father. That's basically what he was saying. And he went to basketball. He went to all these other things to try to make himself look good. And to me, that's just not good.
It's weak. It's very weak. What I don't understand is this. I don't understand how earlier in the season you could sit there and basically every single year you're bagging on Kevin Durant about not being a leader. And then when things don't work out the way that, you know, they should have on the court, now you want transition and go away from KD because you know that that's not going to really get you clicks because he played at a high level. And now you're going to transition to Mat Ishbia. That's where I feel like he kind of lost everything in addition to just the egregious. Listen, you got an owner that is willing to do anything, spend anything to try and get a championship. That is not bad ownership. Now, the moves and the decisions that were made, yeah, sure, you could chalk that up to you know, they were bad decisions ultimately. But I don't think that necessarily makes you a bad owner. Sometimes you have the money to go buy a nice car and you do all your research and you buy a car and you feel pretty good about it. And then maybe a week into it, maybe there's something wrong and it's a lemon, right? Like you just never know. And sometimes these things don't happen. They don't come together. They don't gel and you live on. But Mat Ishbia did have a response. And I want you to take a look at it because I was kind of happy to hear what he said.
Yeah, so Stephen A. Smith, you know, I don't take much he says seriously, you know. I don't think many people do, to be honest with you. You know, the things he said about Kevin Durant, just wrong and disrespectful. The things he said about LeBron James were just disrespectful and inappropriate. And so with that being said, I don't really think Stephen A. believes that, what he said. I think, you know, he's doing his thing. He's on the mic and he's doing what he's, and I think he'll apologize to me because I think it's disrespectful to put my name and aligned with anybody that was kicked out of the league or no longer part. Like, yeah, if he wants to say for the first 2.5 years, Mat Ishbia bought the team, we didn't win a championship. I think you probably said about almost every owner ever. But yeah, we had high expectations and we didn't win. We spent a lot of money and we didn't win. Yep. Be critical of me on that. But to even say that kind of stuff, like I said, that's just, I think, like I said, he'll apologize. I think he was out of line. And I think he knows that. I don't think he really believes that. With that being said, like, what is a great owner? Right? Like my job, like I'm definitely not shooting. You don't want to see me shoot or play or coach. Like, what am I supposed to do? And my job is to provide resources so that when my GM, my front office, my coach wants something, want a player, like that I say yes. I don't focus on profitability. I focus on winning. I focus on the community. I focus on the fan experience. And so I focus on those things. I think that's what makes a great owner. I think if you ask people.
So it's funny that you mentioned apologies, because Stephen A. did mention an apology, and here it is.
Mat Ishbia is absolutely right. I do owe him an apology, because I mentioned Donald Sterling. I thought I was making it clear I was talking about basketball. I certainly did not mean to compare him to a person that was thrown out of this league and has been widely recognized as a racist. I should not have mentioned Mat Ishbia's name in the same breath as Donald Sterling in that regard. I did not mean to do that. I was not talking about that Donald Sterling. I was talking about the Donald Sterling that would be sitting courtside, heckling his own damn players and never winning anything and didn't give a damn. That's the Donald Sterling that I was talking about in terms of how ineffectual he was, or ineffective he was as an owner on a basketball court. I certainly did not mean to do that. So Mat Ishbia is absolutely right, and for that, I apologize. I'm a man. If I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong. Unfortunately for you, sir, that's the only thing I'm wrong about. And that's the only apology that you're getting from me.
Again, it's disingenuous, and it's just all over the place. And I'm not a big fan.
No, it's tennis, man.
It is tennis.
It's he cannot accept when he's 100% wrong. You're just wrong. And then what he said was, well, I thought that people wouldn't think that I was saying that he was a racist. I'm talking about the one part of Donald Sterling. Hold on.
No.
You don't use him as an example then.
No.
You want to compare part of me to frickin' Charles Manson or John Wayne Gacy?
Not the
both
killing,
murder.
not the killing
what
part.
part of them?
Not the killing part.
Not the killing part.
Just everything else. You just like them.
Everything else, but not the killing part. You just like John Wayne Gacy.
Not the most egregious part.
Yeah.
Just, everything else.
I mean, not the guy that blew up a store, but, the guy before it. He's just rude to people, Come on, man.
By the way, Donald Sterling would have been on a heater if he would have made the playoffs 2 out of his first 3 years as an owner.
Come on, man. That part there, again, I just say, I was just disappointed that Stephen A. went there and he played tennis, man. That's exactly what he did. He just strictly played tennis. And again, I'll repeat, he was one of the guys that said before the season that the Suns should have a chance to go extremely deep in the playoffs. And if you said that, then you just can't blame it just on the owner. You can't. You got to blame it on everybody. You win as an organization, you lose as an organization, but ultimately, it's on me, the player, to go out there and get it done. If an owner and a GM shows confidence in me to give me a contract, to expect me to go out there and do my job every night, and I don't do my job, 2 things are going to happen, okay? Well, 3 things. 1, I'm going to get highly criticized for it, and our players did. 2, if it's a way for them to trade me, that's another way. Okay, and then the other way is if I'm God forbid a free agent, they don't not want to pay you. Like we as a player, we know that we're ultimately going to be the ones that suffer from this. Okay, the coach and the players. We've seen it the last 3 years. Coach has gotten relieved. Players have changed. Devin is the only one left from a championship team. People keep saying, and I get it. It's so easy to do it. If they didn't trade Mikal and Cam, then you mentioned it. How many points was Dallas up?
Oh, yeah, like
in game
40.
7? They forgot that.
Yeah.
See, they forgot that part.
Yeah.
Like, how many games were we up in the finals?
2.
Did we win another one?
No.
They forgot that part. See, they only want to go back to the good stuff. Oh, we had it so good. But yet, we go get KD, a guy that is a walking bucket and an all-time great. Everybody was excited. and it hasn't worked out. I will give you that. But you can't. Stephen A., come on, man. It's just too soon for you to even go there. He could have had so many other different takes, man. He could have just said, look, the team was just horrible this year. They didn't play. They didn't gel for whatever reason. And it's not all on Bud. But ultimately, the coach is going to be the first to go because you can't trade 15 players.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the coach is going to go. And, so... yeah, that bothered me, and I tweeted on it, and I'm surprised he didn't respond to me. But I'm not gonna bite my tongue. And the older I get, the more I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm serious. The older I get, the more I'm not. Like when I was younger, yeah, I was worried about career. I was worried about what I could really say and all of that. I've earned the right to be critical. I've earned the right to go at people. I've earned the right to call you water boy and couch potato. I don't care. I truly don't. I'm going to speak my mind, and I think that's what people like from me. They're happy that I speak my mind, and I spoke in my mind. I did an article with Arizona Republic and just describing, probably how Bud, lost his job. And I'm not going critically at Bud. I'm just laying it out. Like, he got fired, and so what is the reasons why he got fired? And I kind of laid out some of those reasons.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to run from that at all. And people need to get used to me in that way. I'm just not. And you can call me whatever you want. You can go at me. I don't care. And I'm never mad. Seriously. I might seem mad on the show, but what did you say about me before the podcast? I come in hyper, happy.
You're coming in hot.
I will be happy for the rest of my life. I'm 60. I'll be 66 in a couple of weeks, God willing. I'm never mad at anybody for what they say to me. I am not. Trust me on that. I don't get mad. I get even. So I get even. You say my mama, your mama. That's all. But I'll get even in a way that probably ticks you off.
So you would say,
because you were trying to tick me off. See, they're trying to tick me off. So I'm gonna go back at you in a way that I'm gonna tick you off. I grew up in a family of 7. We didn't have 3 meals a day. We lived in inner city Chicago. You know how we went to sleep at night? We would talk about each other so we get so tired we fall asleep. That's how our family was. We were a close-knit family, and that's how we survived being hungry. And so trust me, I got jokes. I can signify. And so that's the way I am. And I think Stephen A. tries to do that too at times, but he's trying to do it eloquently, and he's, come on, man. You were wrong. You were wrong, man, on that one. You got to be more patient with that. That's not correct.
So one might say that you are familiar with your own identity. And that's something that I think that the Suns have really suffered. They've suffered from. They have not identified what they are going to be known as from an organization standpoint. And Mat Ishbia had this to say just about that very topic.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of change. Here's what I'll say. Coach Bud, that change was made. Didn't need more evaluation. Everything's going to be evaluated, but it's going to start with me being accountable and setting an identity, and then making sure that the identity we set for Phoenix Suns is set from the ownership, that fans are going to love it and be proud of it. The front office is aligned, the coaches are aligned, the players are aligned. And there's going to be players that sometimes we don't take the most talented player because they don't align with what we believe in. And so those are the changes I'm going to be focused on right now, and then they all will fall into line. And we are going to be making changes, and there's going to be things that are going to be different. And like I said, we will be better. You will enjoy watching our team much better next year, and that's my job. My job is to put. Like, I think there's a lot of things that I do as an owner. But one of the 4 things I talked about when I was just bought the team 2.5 years ago was winning. Right? Like, we talked about community. I think we're doing a heck of a job. We talk about fan experience. I think we do a lot of things that other people don't do. I think culture. Like, we do a lot of great things. I had to do something. Winning has not been where we want. And part of that is we had high expectations, and we've missed the bell by a lot. Not just last year, but this year and last year, obviously. Or not this year, last year and this year. And changes are coming.
Like Sam Cooke said, a change gonna come. And one of the things that when I was listening to this, I kept thinking over and over again is, Josh Bartelstein's going to say something about his role versus James Jones and how that whole thing works, which is I still don't know who does what, to be honest with you. But what I will say is this: I think this doesn't get better unless Mat Ishbia recognizes that there has got to be some type of accountability at the lower levels as well, not just the executive, level. It's also the players. Are you identifying the right type of player to come into this organization that you want to represent the organization, or are they just, or are you just getting the best pieces possible, even though you might not know how they fit? And I feel like they've done that, the former, these last 3 years, where they were just getting pieces that they thought would fit together, that would be nice complementary pieces, and none of it worked. Everything was off kilter. And so this is where, who is holding everybody accountable? Because it certainly didn't look like there was much of that going on the court. It was very all over the place, and the results spoke for themselves. The coach wasn't doing it. And then you get to the GM and everybody else in that organization who's doing what. And that's the hard part that I think Suns fans are trying to figure out, is like, who's to blame? It feels like it's a little bit of everybody, but I feel like the messaging is it's everybody, but somebody's ultimately got to pull the trigger on some of these things. And I just don't know who that ultimately is. Is it Bartelstein? Is it Jones? Is it Ishbia? They kind of went into it, but it was still pretty vague.
Yeah, well, look, it's a team, right? And I've always said it, and I'll continually say it. I think everybody individually, they have to look in the mirror and not judge somebody else first. Judge yourself. You judge yourself first. And just look in the mirror and judge yourself on all the things that maybe you thought you did wrong, you could have done better. And if everyone does that, then that's when you have power. But if you have somebody that's pointing the finger at someone else and behind the scenes saying it's him, and it will never get better.
Yeah.
It just won't, man. It just will never get better. And like I said, on every team, once I understood leadership that I played on, like what you get with me is a dose of how I was every day I walked in a locker room.
Jesus.
Every day. You can bring any of my teammates on here.
Oh man.
We can bring Mark West on here. We can bring Tom Chambers on here, Kevin Johnson, anybody that played, Suns players, you can bring them on here. They will tell you they never saw me in a bad mood. Even though I was in a bad mood, they never knew. I was always the one that was talkative, was hyping, was cracking jokes or whatever. And at sometimes I was in depression because I was struggling so much. But I would just never give in to that. To myself privately I would, but I would convince myself, look, try to be yourself, still be yourself. And I think I was always, true and honest with myself as a player and as a leader. And if I felt that I wasn't doing enough or I should have done right, I would chastise myself. And I think that's where it starts, man. So when people want to start pointing the finger at people and say he's bad, he's this, he's that, it was past Bud. He's the first one that got the kick. Okay? But it's past Bud. And it falls to everybody. And everybody has to look in the mirror, man, and say, what can I do well? Should I listen more? Should I not be as stubborn? Part of Bud's problem is, more so than anything, he's a stubborn dude.
Yeah.
And so that's okay if that's what he wants to be. He's gotten a couple of damn jobs doing it. Okay? He won a championship being stubborn. So, he might look at you and say, I'm going to be my way because I've had this accomplishment. Then I might say privately, well, we had Giannis, we would have too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's always a pushback on that mindset. So, that's how I think it is. So what I would tell Suns fans, honestly, is you got to look at the full picture of it and not try to just blame one person. Everybody all year, they're trying to blame Bradley Beal. It's Brad's fault. He can't stay healthy. Look, nobody wants to get injured on purpose. Brad was one of them dudes, man, you can tell, man, he was feeling it. Like, you could see it, like the depression on his face at times. Like, he was struggling, like the fact that he couldn't stay healthy. And so when he did get out there, he'd come back maybe too soon. He'll come back, and you couldn't judge him on his work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
He worked hard, tried to do the right thing, tried to fit in with KD and Devin. Wasn't the aggressive Bradley Beal that we used to see in Washington. Like, he tried, but it just didn't work at that level of what it should have been. And, so I think we need to stop blaming one person and just look at it as a failure the last 2 years. And then I think we address it that way, and then it gets better. You just can't just point at, we need to get rid of him, we need to get rid of him, that's why, yeah. And then you put a Band-Aid on it. That's not the way it should go, in my estimation. And that's how I look at it.
Well, Josh and James had stuff to say about their role, but we'll get into that after this break. Folks, today, if you are an Inner Circle member, you get 25 cents off per gallon from 2 to 6 o'clock today. That's how Circle K rolls. If you're part of the Inner Circle rewards program, you get hooked up randomly. And I swear every single week they are dropping, time frames, specials for you to be able to hook yourself up on gas, in addition to other drinks and snacks and, the whole 9 yards. So visit Circle K. For Circle K, obviously one of the best convenience stores in the state of Arizona. And there's so many locations. It feels like they're on every other corner here in the Valley. So partake today. Go to Circle K. Make sure you download the Inner Circle app because, like I said, they will hook you up. They'll send you text messages whenever those deals come about. In addition to that, you get discounts on snacks, beverages, things of that nature, and specials that are running for the week. So Circle K, Studio K, check them out. Go to CircleK.com for more details. Terms and conditions do apply. And then on top of that, you're going to want to go check out Branded Bills because Branded Bills is the best hat in the game. And we have a whole rack of them right behind Eddie. Look at that. Look at those beautiful hats right there.
I'm taking all those for we leave.
All those. You should take the Arizona one so you could be a winner today. So listen, Branded Bills is one of the best hat apparel companies out there. If you are a business and you are looking to get some merch, you should go check out brandedbills.com. They will hook you up. They'll help you design your items, and they will get you great pricing all the way across the board. And in addition to that, you can check out Branded Bills for apparel. They have shirts, they have coats, they have you name it, they have it. They've done a great job of growing their brand, and Branded Bills for sure has become one of the biggest brands in the state, if not a rising company in the country. And they're locally owned out here in Mesa. So brandedbills.com, use promo code PHNX, so you can save yourself up to 20% on your first order today. So go to brandedbills.com right now. And before we move on, one last thing. This week is NFL Draft Week. Eddie's Bears, our Cardinals, all on the board. And right now, we have a limited time intro offer for $36 to become a diehard and get your hands on, to me, the best draft guide you could possibly ever want to get your hands on, especially if you're a Cardinals fan, Eagles, Bears, Cowboys, and Broncos, because those are our 5 all cities. So there you go. But we also have a draft party that you're going to have to check out too. It's this Thursday. It's out of Wild Horse Pass. Tickets are still available. They're selling out quick. We have over 100 people expected to show up that have already bought tickets.
No, we want 200, 300.
There you go. Yeah, we need
standing room only. Get out there.
If you weren't there last year, it was epic. It was fun. It was fantastic. We had people come from all over the country, Texas, Baltimore, because they were huge Cardinals fans and they wanted to partake in that draft night.
Get a picture with Saul.
I won't be there. I'll be in Dallas.
Really? Take a picture with you on TV.
Maybe there'll be a cutout. So check it out online. Go phnx.com/events for more information. So like I said earlier, Josh Bartelstein and James Jones, there's been a lot of questions in terms of who's making the decisions, who's pulling the trigger, and whatnot. This is what Josh Bartelstein had to say about that very topic.
I think it's one of the biggest misconceptions. I didn't know Matt. Matt's involvement is pushing us asking the right questions. He said, Matt hasn't made one trade. He hasn't told James and I one free agent to sign or one draft pick. He's involved, and he should be involved because he's the owner. And this is a big business, and these guys make a lot of money, and he asks the right questions because we want to win. But the work that James does, I do, our team does, making recommendations. And This is my 10th year in the NBA. James has been a lot longer. That's how every team works. Every owner wants to know the why behind it. Ultimately, they got to sign off because these are all investments. So he should be involved. And I can tell you one of the coolest things about my role is getting to hear how he does it, because he's had a lot of success in a lot of different things. And the success in the mortgage business, there's certainly themes and aspects that apply here. And we want to keep putting those in place. A lot of our values and visions are tied to that. So it's no concern to me at all. And the misconception of what he actually does is very, very flawed.
I mean, I love Matt's care factor, and more importantly, it's extremely helpful across all aspects of the organization to have an owner who's actively investing and actively listening to us, right? The challenges of winning and winning at a high level, it's extremely difficult. This is the world's best league, and that's why we all want to be here. There's nothing better than having an owner who cares. That just means that he knows and is aware of the things that matter to you, and that's why you'll run through a wall for him.
I mean, I get that. I get that Mat Ishbia is probably a good owner, and I don't doubt that. I think, from everything that I've come across in not only speaking with people in the organization, not even the basketball operations, just in the organization as a whole, they've had nothing but great things to say. They say the environment is it's much improved from where it was before in the Sarver era. Everything is, listen, the fan experience and all this other stuff, they're really trying to invest and analyze that stuff to make sure that everything that from a fan perspective is up to par. Now, obviously on the court, it's been a little bit of a different, feel and a different vibe. And like I always say, vibes don't pay the bills. The only good vibes that pay the bills are if your vibes are high and you're winning championships. And unfortunately, the Suns have never done that. So how do they get to that point, and who's really going to be pulling the trigger in a variety of different ways? It feels like the picks that they have made in the draft specifically, and whoever's pulling the trigger on that has a specific identity for what they'd like to go towards. But for a variety of other reasons, the free agent side of things is not equated to that same thing. Because if you go back and you look at Toumani Camara, for example, Ryan Dunn, Oso Iguodala, especially, Dunn and Camara, they've had a defensive identity about them. Like, they are grinders on the defensive side. And yeah, they were limited in certain factions offensively, but defensively, there was an identity. There was something that were really tough right there. So I don't know why there's a disconnect between those two sides and who is ultimately making that final call to make a move. And so that's, until they figure that out, I'm sure they do inside, I remain confused as to who is really, like, the fact that both of them were at that presser instead of just one tells you right now that there's mixed messaging in terms of who's in charge and who's ultimately going to be responsible to fix this.
Well, the group, I think it's always by committee. It should be by committee. It shouldn't be one person definitively saying this is what we're going to do. You should always have a leader within the committee that can break the tie, that can maybe, but not just one person saying it. I think, when you talk to most people that have had great success in companies, what they would say is they're putting They're putting people around them that's smarter than them.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they're doing. Like, because if they think that they can do it on their own, they're going to wind up bankrupt. So I think it always should be by committee. But yes, you should have a chief in charge. You should have somebody that can break the tie or whatever and say, okay. But I don't put it on just one individual to say that person is making the decisions. And I don't believe that's true. I think it's a committee thing, and it should be, because everyone has their own ideas. I think coaches should be involved in it. I think your top players should be involved in it because they have to play with this individual. It takes a lot to go into it. Well, here's the problem that I have, especially in this day and age. And I understand. I don't want to be the old man on the lawn. I don't.
But he's about to be the old man on the lawn.
I was, they shouldn't have taught history in school then. There you go. If you don't want the old man on the lawn advice, Then take history. Oh, they are trying to take history out of school, by the way. Crazies. But anyway, don't let me started there.
Yeah, please don't.
But look, history is an important thing, right? Because what does it do? It allows you to reach back and grow from something that happened years ago and how it was done. So history is important. But we live in this robotic world now. Well, everybody thinks, oh, that robot's not working. We need to replace him with this robot. That robot's not working. We need to replace him with this robot. And that's how they look at athletes in general now. They just look at them on paper. That's how they look at them. Like, oh, on paper, on paper, he could work. It's more than that. Yeah, you can bring all these robots together, and then you say to them, you got to do your part now. You got to go out there and interact well on the court. You got to go out there, play for each other. You got to go out there, listen to the coach. You got to go out there and be connected on whatever play he calls, because any play works in sports as long as all 5 people on a basketball court is in unison with the play. Doesn't matter what play it is. Historically, triangle. We never heard of the triangle until Phil Jackson and Texas Winter brought it back. And what did? They won 6 titles. The Princeton offense that Eddie Jordan used to run in New Jersey with the Nets, they went to the finals back-to-back years.
From Pete Carroll.
Nobody was running that. But they all, they accepted it. Denver, a few years ago, not many players would give in to the fact that one player had to touch the damn ball every time down the court in the half-court offense. That was Jokic. They won a title because they all connected. So it falls to the robots that you think about and how they. So ultimately, when we got off to an 8-1 start and we were connected, KD was closing games at the end. The hierarchy was there. Everything was flowing. Then it just went south. Why did it go south? Why did it go south?
Why did it go
Players
south?
got to look at themselves. Coach got to look at himself. So don't start all of a sudden jumping outside of the team to the front office now. No, let me finish.
Okay.
Don't jump out there now. Now when it went south, don't jump on the decision making because, again, I will remind you, before the season started, everybody thought the Suns would contend for a title. So what you're saying is they put a good team together. What you're giving into is they put a good team together. Oh, we went out and got a championship coach. We went out and got a guy that won it in Milwaukee. He's an Arizona guy.
Dream job.
Crying at the press conference when he saw Al McCoy.
Yeah.
Everybody was excited. Buying season tickets. Everybody was all in. Now when it goes south, we want to go to the guys that put it together now. Because that player is not living up to what we thought. So who do you look at now? You look at the coach and you look at the players. That's all I would say. Okay. And so that's the problem that we have in sports right now is that we get excited and then we get mad. Part of it is the gambling apps out there. You don't want to admit it, but it's true. Your emotions are driven by your pocketbook because you're losing money. Stop freaking gambling then. So a lot of that emotion we get from fans now, I don't even know if it's because they love the team or they losing money. I don't. But, that emotion drives negativity. We've seen it in college where these young kids are getting death threats. Why are they getting death threats? Because you're losing your money. That's why. You're not invested 100% in the team. You're pissed. So my point is, ultimately, for me as a player, I accepted that jump. If I stunk, I stunk. Man, I'm not playing well. I got to get better. So that's where you look. The players need to look. They should have looked themselves in the mirror and say, how did this go south? Seriously. We just going to blame Bud? Yeah, he's at fault in some things, but we just going to just blame him totally? No, you. Everybody has a hand in it, man. But to all of a sudden now, if everybody was complaining about the acquisitions before the season and saying, oh, this team is going to struggle, it's not going to work, they did what they put together is not right. Okay, you got a point to go after those guys. But to do it after the fact, after everyone thought that this team would win, that's where you got, and I'm not saying they're not free of blame and they've accepted it, but my point is, no, man, we just didn't perform well on the court, man.
I mean, that's true, but I think there's also a whole other, kind of what Matt said is he took ownership on the fact that, they didn't have an identity and they didn't really have a focus in terms of what their organization wants to represent. He mentioned teams like the Steelers and, they have an identity. No matter who the players are, what the Steelers represent and what they're going to try and do every single night. There's other franchises that have that identity that you just know, like the Ravens. You just know what type of player they're going to try and go after to bring in, right?
How many plays?
The Suns don't really have an identity. They've got a little bit of everything, and none of it fits together. And so my thing is, okay, you went from Monty Williams, who was stubborn in his own right, couldn't relate to DA, couldn't get him across the board, ultimately cost him his job. He leaves. He goes to Detroit. You bring in Frank Vogel. Frank Vogel did a decent job compared to Bud, obviously, looking back at it. But even they were disconnected. They get swept in the first round. You can't have that because you got such a high payroll. Then you go to Coach Bud, who really is just the offensive version of what Frank Vogel was, except far worse. And they're completely disconnected. It looks like Bud is out after 2 months. He's just disconnected from the team all the way through and through. So as you're sitting there inside those walls of that organization, yeah, fans are going to want accountability in terms of what are you seeing and what are you feeling when you're putting this team together, because clearly there's a disconnect that is happening for whatever reason that seemingly nobody could put a finger on.
They went out and got 2 championship coaches back to back. What do you want?
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. I know. So all I'm saying to you is, though,
but even Bud had his baggage before he got here.
He had his baggage, but my point is that he was a winning coach, okay? He was a winning coach. And so I can't believe she's calling me now. She knows I'm on the podcast.
Come on. Oh, now. Joy, you got to be better than that. Let's go, man.
But listen, they hired 2. Vogel won a title with the Lakers, coaching LeBron. That's not easy to do, right? Then Budenholzer wins. I know, but he wins it's not easy to do. It's not easy to coach a superstar.
Yeah.
And so then Bud coached Giannis. Not easy, right? He won in Atlanta. He's under the Greg Popovich tree. I mean, damn.
Yeah.
I mean, you as a fan, you oh.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like they went and got a novice.
I know, but
so my point to you is, yes, they can say that they made a mistake in not seeing something in those 2 coaches that got past them, or they made a mistake in not listening to criticisms that somebody probably put on them.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's where they
decide, okay, That's fine, but you're going to get criticism when the draft comes up.
You're going to get criticism. And that's fine, but as a head coaching candidate, you've got to be vetted all the way through and through. And we know that there was things that were just not, listen, Man's had issues off the court too. He wasn't squeaky clean and they hired him anyway and it all fell apart.
They did, but they also, I'm sure they brought those up in the meeting, right? Again, when you go for an interview, and like I said, there's no perfection in anybody. Mm-hmm. If there's nothing wrong with you, it's something wrong with you. So I don't care who you encounter to hire, you're gonna find something negative in their past. True. And so now it's up to you to believe them in what they say and that it's different, right? Mm-hmm. And it's hard, man. You know why it's hard? Because of the amount of money they make. So somebody can be really good at deceiving, right? They can be really good in an interview process. That's why you have a high turnover in the NBA in coaching. Look at where it is.
Yeah.
It's not just here. You have a high turnover. It's not just the Suns. Taylor Jenkins gets fired a few games before the playoffs.
Yeah.
Mike Malone, who won a championship a couple of years prior, gets fired. Like, it's not just here. It's everywhere. It is very difficult when you're paying that much money to somebody and there's not many of them in the world that does it. And so it's hard to like not get burned every now and then.
Yeah.
And in the history of this game, it's only been a few organizations that have really not had a ton of coaches. Utah's one of them. I think they've only had like 10 coaches in the history in Utah, something like that. Crazy. San Antonio. Like, even the Lakers, as great as they are, they've had changeover in coaches. Even Boston, as great as they are, they've had changeover in coaches. Like, it's so difficult for a coach. Really, it is. You got to find the right one. But there's some coaches out there that can sell their product, man, and they can convince you. And so, like, to me, it's a roll of the dice. Yeah. So ultimately, Saul, I will say it again. I had some coaches I could not stand. I didn't like everything about them. But we still won. We still won, man. Ultimately, man, it falls to the players, man.
Of course.
It falls to them. Like, in the leadership within that group to fight and just ignore and challenge the coach and get him to change his ways. It's like, because ultimately they're the ones that's going to get criticized.
Yeah.
And that's why I just want people to understand, man, this is not easy. It's easy for you to sit at home and rip it and say this guy's trash and all of that. Man, that's why careers in professional sports are short. It's short, man. Like, if I can get you all into the locker room, like, watch that Celtic documentary on the Boston Celtics. I'm telling you, it's tremendous. It takes you into the locker room. It takes you where you don't see. You don't see it. You don't see the stress levels, man. You don't see the trying to play through injury and all of that. You guys look at it as a game. Man, I'm telling you, man, it's more than the money, man. It's times in my career, man, I didn't even spend any money because I was so depressed because I was losing or I wasn't playing well. That money didn't mean nothing. I wish I was so far away from it I could get away. And, 1 year I did leave. I went to Greece because I had to get away. I had to. Or I was going to die, seriously. I mean, like, that's the part people don't get. They always want to look at the money first, the fame first, but they don't understand, man, behind all that, man, depression at the professional level is high. It's high. And if you're not connected as a team, you're going to fail. And I think that's the part. So stop blaming one entity is all I'm saying. Everybody owns up to their responsibility. And then you'll win. It's just the way it is, man. Oklahoma City looks like a freaking juggernaut right now. I mean, what they just did to Memphis yesterday, but that wasn't just built in one day. We've criticized Oklahoma City over the years in not being aggressive and doing stuff and all of that.
Accruing draft
picks. And
now
look at them now.
Yeah.
Like, so, it's like, it's luck, it's timing, it's all of that, but to just always want to put it on one person, two people, all of that, it's just not how sports works, man. It's just not. I wish it was, but it's just not. And so, like I said, for the season, everybody thought this team would win, and they failed. Coach normally goes because of it, but it doesn't leave the fault amongst everyone else. And it's got to be patient with it.
We do have a super chat I think we have 2 super chats. Michael Romero says Stephen A. Smith is the new Skip Bayless. Well, I think they're 1-on-1. And then Hoosman super chat. Suns need earpieces to hear Eddie during games. Enjoyed watching KD, but if he is traded, who do we get to best fit with Book and to match up with these other teams that out hustled us this season? We appreciate both of you guys for your super chats. I mean, that's the question that everybody's asking in terms of like how do you construct this roster if you've already said that Devin Booker is not tradable and everybody else essentially is on the hook. I don't know. I don't know what type of player, what kind of DNA you're looking at and trying to bring in, to kind of fix the wrongs. That's just a very complex issue. But next week, Eddie and I will give our thoughts in terms of how we would construct this organization, this roster, to best fit what the Suns are hopefully going to try and do or whatever identity they choose to want to run with. But before we get out of here, I did want to bring up one thing. Listen, the playoffs have started. The last 2 days, some games have been pretty exciting. Some games not so much. Here's a look at what happened over the weekend in the East. You have these games. Which one of these games, Eddie, did you think was the most compelling or what had an interesting wrinkle to it?
Well, I was kind of disappointed that, a lot of these games weren't close. And I actually, look, the Knicks Detroit game was a lot closer than what the score was.
Oh, yeah.
Detroit let them off the hook. But they showed their what?
21-0 run.
They showed their freaking youth and not being in that situation. And the Knicks showed them something. And the Knicks played that way last year. They just you got to play 48 minutes. And Detroit didn't. Had an 8-point lead going into the fourth quarter. And then the crazy run that the Knicks went on, 21-0. That shouldn't happen, but it will happen to a young team. I expect Detroit to make this a long series, though. I think Detroit can beat the Knicks in this series, but you just can't beat experience, man, and come playoff time. And that's part of the issue for them. So that game right there was really the only game. I was disappointed in the Milwaukee game. I actually picked Milwaukee to win. Everybody's getting on Kyle Kuzma. Like, again, it's easy to get on somebody that goes 0 for 5 and doesn't score. But, damn, he only got 5 shots spread over 20-something minutes.
Yeah.
Now, think about that. He got 5 shots spread over 20-something minutes. Now, when you think of Kyle Kuzma, what do you think of?
Yeah.
A guy that what?
3-and-D kind of guy.
That likes to score.
Yeah.
So if you're not feeding him, well, he shouldn't be out there. Come on. So that Detroit game was the one I liked.
That was the one that I was going to point to. I really liked how competitive and how physical both of those teams were with each other, especially Detroit not being afraid. You could tell they're not afraid. They're trying to come at the Knicks with everything they got. So I think that's probably the most intriguing series. Everyone else, I feel like, honestly, Dame coming back is going to change that series to a certain degree for sure. But, man, I don't think Milwaukee has a chance without Dame for sure. That's not going to happen. So in the West, these were the results from this weekend. I will say this. There's 2 games that honestly, all 4 of these games really stood out. They for different reasons. You start off in Denver and the Clippers really just melted down. And you got to give Russell Westbrook some credit for just coming up with some big time plays. The Wolves just absolutely putting belt to ass on the Lakers, which was kind of shocking to that degree. And then OKC, same thing with the Grizz. They didn't have a chance in that game. OKC just murdered them from the start. And then, listen, don't let this score fool you. Yeah, the Warriors won, and they were up double digits. They were up by 23 at one point and then melted it all the way, got the lead cut down to 3 at one point. The Rockets fought back. The Rockets had a horrible game, but I think that there's a lot of things that you could be optimistic about if you're Houston because your 2 big-time scorers didn't score hardly at all. So that was a fun, series of 4 games right there. I'm really excited to see what happens in game 2 for each of them.
Look, the Rockets are the better team in the series. Again, youth. Just in a hurry. It seems like they were going 100 miles an hour.
Going too fast for themselves for sure.
And because they were caught up in the moment.
For those of you streaming on our digital platforms, go ahead and go over to PHNX for overtime. Go PHNX.com to continue streaming.
Playoffs is a different animal. You got to slow down, man. And I understand they were all ramped up. You think about this. They lost by 10. They was a 3-point game with about 4 minutes left. They got all the way back down from 20 plus. And their two top scorers was 7 for 34.
Yeah.
Van Fleet and Green. And they were 4, I think, of 17 from 3. That's not going to happen. So that's what it took for the Warriors to beat them. Jimmy Butler and Steph playing unbelievable. I just don't think 2 players is going to beat that team.
No.
We talk about the Warriors' defense. Their defense was tremendous, but Houston's was tremendous too. When they decided to shut them down, they did. I just think they just need to calm down. It's a lesson. Sometimes a loss is a good loss. I think it's a good loss for them because now they understand what they have to do. Play 48 minutes and be more connected. I expect them to be that way. Yeah, the Minnesota game didn't surprise me. The Lakers, look, any team that shoots the ball as well as Minnesota did, they're going to beat anybody. They would have beaten Boston. They probably would have beaten OKC. Look, you shoot the ball from 3 that well, it's their night. You're going to lose.
Yeah.
That's why it's a 7-game series. You know, everybody wants to get, they beat them the first game. It's a 7-game series. Let it play out. I don't get too excited after one game.
No.
I just can't. We've seen it time and time again. Yeah, they're sleeping. The teams that won, they're sleeping good. Yeah, food tastes good. They're having a good time. Yes, without a doubt. Then you lose, and all of a sudden, the other team is doing the same. You got to win 7. It's going to be a cutout thing, but yeah, some good games. But Oklahoma City, they took advantage of Memphis. People need to remember Memphis had to play, twice?
Mm-hmm.
And then they only got 1 day off. While Oklahoma City was sitting there waiting for them for a week. So I'm not going to buy too much into that butt whooping. Memphis is a much better team than that. And I guarantee you game 2 will be a lot better.
Mm. Well, we will see a lot of good games, obviously in this playoffs. So there's a lot of intriguing matchups. And I had a fun time watching most of them this weekend. So that wraps up another episode of Outside Shots. You can follow my man, JumpShot8 on Twitter and on Instagram. You can follow me at Saul_Bookman as well on both. And you can follow the show at PHNX_Suns. Make sure you subscribe to the Outside Shots podcast. And make sure you hit that thumbs up button on your way out. We'd really appreciate it. And listen, leave a 5-star review and, a 5-star rating and leave a review for our pod.
Got 3 hours of NBA action. My radio show, SiriusXM NBA Radio, 1 to 4 Pacific time. All the NBA action for you. 1 to 4 Pacific time on NBA Radio today, Monday through Friday. Look forward to you calling. And call when you come on the show.
There you go. There's your personal
Water boys
invite.
and couch potatoes are invited.
There you go. For us, we appreciate you as always. Until next time, peace.